Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Got a couple of guns on the table for a comparison that was requested by some viewers. And at first when I looked at it, I didn't think these were comparable because this has got a full-size grip. So either the X-Gun style or a Glock 19, and this is the VP9-B. But it only holds 15 rounds by H&K. And over here, the FN509 medium holds 15 rounds, but it's got a Glock 19 style grip. However, as I started looking at it and started looking at the other things, these flip-flop back and forth in different specs. So it actually truly is kind of an interesting comparison. We're going to go ahead and do it because there are some things that you can get one feature with one gun that you can't get with the other and vice versa. So we'll start with the HK VP9-B, which is just a button mag release of the version of the original VP9 that had a short paddle here. And of course it is unloaded. And this one is unloaded as well. And all this is a shorter grip and overall smaller version of the FN509, which the FN509 is kind of the X-Gun size, but it has a slightly longer slide. Both of these are chambered in 9mm, and both of these hold 15 rounds. Now, the FN, you can put the FN509 17-round magazine. It'll just hang down, but it'll function flawlessly. And the VP9-B, when we first got this one, the only mags you could get were the flush 15 rounds. There is a 17 round available for this now. So you have that flexibility in the later versions of it. So let's go ahead and compare these two, because you may be looking for this style gun and trying to decide between them. From an ergonomics standpoint, they both have front and rear serrations. They both have a 4-slot Picatinny rail, and they both have quite nice texturing. It's a little bit different. Now the FN has interchangeable back straps. Comes with 2 different back straps you can pop off, but the rest of the grip is fixed the way it is. The VP9, not only does it come with interchangeable back straps, but these side plates are interchangeable. And you can interchange them in any combination of small, medium, and large, left, right, however you want to do it, so that you have a lot of flexibility with the VP9 and how you set the grip up. And the texture flows nicely, but both of them are textured well, both of them are comfortable in the hand. Both of them have a nice beaver tail that gets your hand up in there so that you're not going to get slide bit. One thing I do find though, on the VP9, just the shape of my hand, my thumb right here tends to hit on the frame. It doesn't kind of just sit well in my hand, it doesn't sit smooth and low in my hand. Whereas when I pick up the FN, it doesn't do that. It kind of just sits right into that socket and just sits with the beaver tail itself right up against here, whereas the VP9 is kind of sitting on this knuckle and this is kind of hanging in the air. That's just a characteristic of my hand, your hand. It's all going to be different. It's going to be when you pick it up, whichever one feels comfortable to you. And I could probably tune that a little bit in the VP9 by using different back straps and moving this hump. But I may have to choose difference in thickness to get it the way I want. Now the good news is I probably can do that. This one happens to be set up to fit Hammer's hands, which are a little bit larger than mine, but playing around with this you could get some flexibility. When you look at the other side, both of them have ambidextrous slide stop slide release, but only the FN509 has an ambidextrous magazine release. So you get a little bit more ambi features on the FN509. They both have different yet nice sights. They're a 3-dot arrangement, they're dovetail, they're replaceable. The HK VP9 happens to have luminescent sights, and both of them are available with night sights. And one thing you'll find is that they're both very, very visible, very clear and easy to see. So you do get good sights, and they're dovetailed and replaceable, front and rear, so that now there you go, so you can see it. So if you don't like the sights, you can easily change them out. One feature the VP9 has, actually 2 features, has this striker status indicator, which disappears when it's not cocked and turns red when it is. And it has these wings, which are removable. You can get an adapter to replace the wings, but the wings give you something to get a hold of. And a lot of these guns in this territory, the slides are a little bit heavier. But if you've got weaker hands, having something to get your hand up against may help a little bit with operating it. So they kind of both have nice features, but they've got some different nice features. The triggers on these are similar, but one thing I did find is the VP9, they're both about a 5-pound trigger, 5.5 pounds or so. We'll do the VP9 trigger. They both have the split trigger. There's your take-up. Very crisp, light wall. It's not a heavy wall like a Glock, for example, but it is quite crisp. There's your reset, a little bit of take-up to get back on the wall, and a break. But one thing about this trigger on the VP9, it's very, very smooth. The 509, I'm not sorry, when I said they had the split trigger, the 509 has the hinge trigger. But the hinge does not pinch. You aren't going to get pinched on this. It's a little grittier, a little bit less take-up. Nice wall. The walls are very, very similar. There's the reset. It's kind of an audible reset. Just a hair of take-up, you're back on the wall. And then again, a nice light wall. But the trigger on the 509 is a little grittier than the VP9. It's not that you're going to necessarily notice it by itself, but when you put the two side by side, it stands out. You actually notice that grittiness a little bit. And that trigger on the 509 with some rounds down range, or a little bit of time spent with some polish, you probably can get rid of that grit. The VP9 is getting close to a PPQ trigger. I mean, nothing actually reaches the PPQ trigger, but it's getting close to a PPQ trigger right out of the box. Let's talk about some dimensions. If I set them side by side, they are almost the same length. There's a little bit longer. So if you take the VP9 at 7.43 inches and the 509 medium is 7.4, so you've got a 0.3 inch difference between the lengths. Not enough that's going to make a difference in how you're going to carry it. And the barrels are 4.09 in the VP9 and 4.0 in the 509. So your barrel length is close enough to not make a difference. The grip height's where you're going to notice the difference. The VP9 is 5.41 inches tall, which is your full-size territory. And let me put the flush magazines in it. So let me get the correct magazines. I'll put the flush magazines in. You'll see the flush magazine on the VP9 is a little flusher. It's got kind of a ramp at the heel, so it kind of smooths in, and it's just kind of squared off on the VP9, the 509 and the VP9, so if we get them the right way around. So the height on the VP9 is 5.41, and on the 509 is 5.2. They both hold 15 rounds in the standard flush magazines, so you've got a little bit more height without the extra capacity to go with it, at least in the version that we've got here. And from a thickness standpoint, the VP9 is fatter. You can see it. You can see it's in the contour of the grip. It's 1.52 inches, and the 509 is 1.35 inches. So the 509 is a little bit more streamlined, kind of just flat-sided, and the VP9's kind of got some contour. Now that can be adjusted, how much of that contour, again, by changing the back straps and the side plates and stuff like that. But even if you just look at it and ignore the contour, you'll see that just the basic frame of the gun and the slide, despite the bevel, is a little bit wider. Weight is the interesting part. The VP9 is a bigger gun. It weighs 25.56 ounces. The 509 is a smaller gun. It weighs 26.5 ounces. So you're picking up about an ounce, even though the gun is overall smaller. That I found kind of interesting. I would have not figured that the smaller of the two would be heavier. And that's unloaded weight with the empty magazine in them. That just kind of was a bit of a surprise. Now from an MSRP standpoint, the VP9 is a little bit pricier. MSRP is $719. The 509 is MSRP is $679. The street prices before everything came apart, they kind of got a little closer together. $549 for the VP9 and low 500s for the 509. But right now with everything going on, the prices, street prices, if you can even find things, are going close to MSRP. I'm going to take them apart and show you the internals, show you the difference between them. So pop the magazine, lock the 509 back, pop the magazine, lock the VP9 back, and then flip the lever down on the 509, release it, line it up, pull the trigger, and it comes apart. So set those parts down. And on this one, you push the lever down. I'm sorry, I had it off screen. And this one I did not need to pull the trigger. I did, but it's not necessary to pull the trigger. The VP9 will come apart without pulling the trigger. So now that I've got them in my hand, you'll see there's a dual recoil spring on the 509 and a single recoil spring, kind of a wafer style, on the VP9. Pull those springs out. Try to keep them organized. Get the barrels out. And now, since I happen to have the slides in my hand, I'll show you the slides. So I've got the VP9 in my right hand and the 509 in my left hand, or on the bottom of the view on the screen. And you'll see they're both well machined. They're both very, very clean and well done in here. They're similar looking. The only thing you'll see is that the drop safety plungers, both have drop safeties, are slightly different. This is the piston style like you're used to seeing in Glocks, and this is more of a pivoting arm style, but they both work. They're both been known to be reliable. Pull the barrels. I got VP9 again in my right hand, 509 in my left. Both have polished feed ramps. Both have very well manufactured barrels, and they're similarly designed. So you've got very good quality on both of these guns. And then the 509 on the bottom, VP9 on the top. The VP9 has slightly more robust locking block and slightly more robust rails, are a little bit longer. You see the rail there versus the rail there. And the rear rails on the 509 are longer and shorter on the VP9. So it's kind of longer, kind of alternate which one has the more robust rails at which end of the gun. Both have somewhat complicated fire control groups, not quite as simple as some of the others that are out there, but both have been proven reliable and are easy to use. And you'll see that at the 509, it has nice solid arms on the slide stop slide release, so you're not going to have the problem with it twisting. And this one is a slightly different design. The two arms go to a central pivot. So there's a central pivot there, and there's two solid arms going to that central pivot. So this is going to be equally reliable, it's just slightly different design. And I almost forgot to show you the barrels. So I've got the 509 barrel in my hand, and I did show you the barrel, but I didn't light them up. You can see they're conventional rifling, very well machined and solid. That's the 509. And then the VP9, and you notice the rifling is less distinct. That's because it's polygonal. So the VP9 has polygonal rifling, which that rifling will give you a slightly increased amount of pressure and velocity due to the design of polygonal rifling, more so than the length difference in the barrels. Reassembling them's easy. We'll grab the VP9 first. Make sure I put the right parts in the right gun. Turn this the right way around. Line it up. Back. Operational. The 509 is going to be just as easy. Okay, I think I messed up. I didn't center the recoil spring, and that's an easy mistake to make with a lot of these guns, and that is a user error, not a design defect in the gun. A lot of these, if you don't get that recoil spring centered nicely, it'll hang up when you go to put it together. And since I'm doing this kind of at an angle to show it on camera, not holding it properly facing me, I had that issue. But again, that's not a design defect in the gun. It doesn't make one easier than the other. Though I will find that the design of the wafer type springs tend not to have that big lip, just the way that type of spring design works. So they're a little less prone to it. But many of the common guns, PPQ, Glock, Smith & Wesson, all use that dual recoil spring with that base, and you do have to get them centered correctly. Overall, they're both easy to shoot well. They're both comfortable guns. They both are from a high-quality company, both very reliable. So now it's going to come down to kind of more the ergonomics. What fits your hand? Do you need full ambi? There is, by the way, a version of the VP9 that has the paddle release. It's just, it doesn't have the -B. At that point, you do have a full ambi mag release. So if full ambi is a need and you're willing to work with a paddle, you can get full ambi in the VP9, just in that different version of the gun. Overall, I probably would be inclined towards the VP9. It just seems to fit a little bit better. Despite that knuckle thing, I would kind of adjust for that. And the overall, the smoother trigger. That would kind of be my choice. But again, that's kind of getting down to your splitting hairs to nuances. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter. We're kind of all over the place. And thank you.